And one person is in custody in a shooting involving a Chicago police SUV. It ended up with 2 bullet holes in the windshield after gunfire near 113th and Avenue L on the city's southeast side. Police were responding to a disturbance in the alley when officers say a man approached them in what they described as a shooting scene.
Some breaking news at this hour. CBS Skywatch arriving over this scene of a shooting now deemed homicide by police. Here is what we know. The body of a 37-year-old man was found with gunshot wounds to the torso and left leg. He was pronounced dead here at this scene.
Chicago's gang landscape has long been dominated by notorious names like the Latin Kings and Gangster disciples. But beneath that surface lies a network of lesser-known yet equally violent organizations that have survived for decades in the shadows. Among them, the 12th Street Players stand out as one of the most resilient suburban-born street gangs to ever embed themselves in the Windy City's underworld. From their roots in Cicero in the early 1970s to their eventual entrenchment in Chicago neighborhoods like Clearing and Avenue H, the 12th Street Players built a legacy forged in blood, loyalty, and calculated expansion. Their ties to the Chicago outfit through infamous figures like Big Paulie Carparelli only deepen the intrigue surrounding this group. Inspired by 1950s greaser culture, they embraced a clean-cut, gentleman image symbolized by the Playboy Bunny logo and classic accessories like a top hat, cane, and gloves. They were known for listening to oldies, drinking beer, and rejecting the drug culture common among other gangs at the time. In their early years, the Players were relatively unknown due to their young age, much like their peers, the Noble Knights, who also formed in 1972. They clashed with the Ridgeway Lords from Little Village, a rivalry inherited from the Archdukes, as well as the Cicero Freaks, whom they despised for their heavy drug use and hippie affiliations, and the Gaylords from Chicago. By 1976, the gang had grown significantly by flipping members from the Cicero Esquires and Berwyn Kings, allowing them to expand into Berwyn and dominate parts of Roosevelt Road. Their influence continued to grow into the early 1980s as Mexican gangs like the 2-6, 2-2 Boys, and Imperial Gangsters began moving into Cicero. Though these new arrivals mostly settled in the Grand Works area, the Players encountered them in schools and fought bitter turf battles. In 1981, the 12th Street Players officially joined the People Nation Alliance, aligning with the Latin Kings and Noble Knights against common enemies in the Folk Nation. This move intensified their rivalries with the 2-6, Imperial Gangsters, and 2-2 Boys. Through the 1980s, the Players expanded further into suburbs like Lagrange, Lyons, and Brookfield, working with the Latin Kings to battle folk gangs in those areas. They even gained territory in Countryside, where they were the only People Nation gang present. One of the gang's most notable accomplishments came in 1990 when they opened a set in Chicago's Clearing neighborhood near Midway Airport, a rare feat for a suburb-born gang. There, they allied with the Insane Popes, another predominantly white People Nation gang, to fight 2-6 and Satan disciples who were also gaining ground in the area. By 1992, the Players welcomed the Latin Counts into Cicero. Although the Counts were fellow People Nation members, tensions rose when the Counts aggressively expanded their presence into Warren Park. What began as an alliance turned into a violent turf war in 1994, resulting in heavy police surveillance and arrests on both sides. In 1995, a tragic double deletion involving the almighty popes who deleted 2 13-year-old girls for associating with the Ridgeway Lords sparked intense media scrutiny and police crackdowns on all gangs wearing black and white or affiliated with the popes. Despite not being involved in the deletions, the 12th Street Players were swept up in the backlash due to their appearance and association with the Insane Popes. Their numbers were decimated, and they lost their turf in Clearing, forcing them to go underground. However, in a remarkable turnaround, the 12th Street Players made a strong comeback in 2000. They re-established their presence on 63rd Street in Clearing, an extraordinary achievement in Chicago gang history, where most gangs rarely reclaim lost turf. Their resurgence showed both resilience and strategic adaptability, securing their legacy as one of the most notable suburban-born gangs to penetrate Chicago's gangland fabric and survive through multiple generations of street warfare. Paulie Carparelli, born around 1970, emerged from the west suburbs of Chicago as a prominent figure in both gang and mob circles. He began his criminal career with the 12th Street Players, a Cicero-based street gang, before climbing the ranks to become a feared enforcer for the Chicago outfit Cicero crew, once led by Michael, the large guy Sarno. Known as a debt collector for the outfit, Carparelli was involved in violent extortion plots that spanned several states. Though not officially a made man, prosecutors described him as a determined mob associate who modeled himself after traditional mob values of loyalty and silence. Carparelli's criminal empire began unraveling in 2013 when the FBI intercepted multiple wiretap conversations detailing his role in violent shakedowns, including a plot to break a car dealer's legs over a $300,000 debt. He orchestrated cross-country extortion schemes using threats, muscle, and brutal enforcement tactics. His most notorious case involved the planned assault of a businessman. Serpico hit foiled just hours before it was to be carried out. In 2015, Carparelli pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit extortion and was sentenced to 42 months in federal prison. Prosecutors painted him as a dangerous outfit operative, while his lawyers insisted he was more wannabe than wise guy. Regardless, his case offered a rare window into the outfit's modern operations and the enduring legacy of violence tied to Chicago's underworld. Robert Bobby English, believed to be a leader in the 12th Street Players street gang based in Cicero, Illinois, was sentenced to 23 years in prison for his role in a violent 2009 home invasion targeting a man suspected of winning the lottery. On September 6, 2009, English and two accomplices broke into a Rolling Meadows residence and shot the 42-year-old victim 4 times during a robbery attempt. Prosecutors said the attackers believed the man had substantial cash on hand from a recent lottery payout. The victim survived the shooting after a 6-day hospital stay. English later pleaded guilty to attempted first-degree deletion, home invasion, and aggravated battery with a firearm, all serious Class X felonies under Illinois law. In April 2011, he was sentenced in Cook County Court, receiving credit for time served and required to complete at least 85% of the term before becoming eligible for parole. English had a lengthy rap sheet prior to this case, including prior convictions for armed robbery, bribery, and burglary. His accomplice, Carmen Palella, was sentenced separately to 12 years in prison. According to prosecutors and media reports, the motive behind the attack was a belief that the victim, who was known to some of the offenders, was hiding lottery winnings, a belief that ultimately led to a near-fatal betrayal. This set of the 12th Street Players is based in Chicago's far southeast side, near 108th Street and Avenue H. Known for maintaining a low-key presence, the 108th and Ave. H set remains one of the last active extensions of the original organization within city limits. Located near 64th Street and Nottingham Avenue, Players Alley is the last surviving 12th Street Players set in Chicago's Midway area. Following the 1995 deletion of 2 12-year-old girls near Hale Park, a crime mistakenly committed by the Almighty Popes that sparked massive police crackdowns, the 12th Street Players, along with their allies, the Almighty Insane Popes and Almighty Popes, were nearly wiped out in the region. Players Alley stands as a symbol of resilience, preserving the gang's legacy in the area despite years of heavy pressure. The story of the 12th Street Players is one of unlikely endurance. Born from teenage rebellion and styled after old-school greasers, they defied the odds by not only surviving Chicago's brutal gang ecosystem, but by influencing it. Their alliances with the Latin Kings, feuds with folk nation gangs, and eventual connections to the Chicago outfit reveal a gang that operated at the intersection of street politics and organized crime. Figures like Paulie Carparelli and Robert English showcased the group's capacity for violence and ambition, pushing the TSP beyond local turf wars into national headlines. Even as police crackdowns and internal fractures reduce their numbers, the Players' resurgence in areas like 63rd Street and Avenue 8 shows their story is far from over. In a city defined by shifting gang alliances and brutal turf wars, the 12th Street Players remain one of Chicago's most dangerous and enduring underground forces.